Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. My objective with this podcast when I started was to guide people on their journey, to simplify spirituality, and I just love the fact that it's doing that. All the messages I get, all the the DMs, the emails. I really love the fact that it's having that impact. So thank you for everyone that's listened. Thank you for everyone that's supported. If this is your first episode for listening, thank you for being here. As I said, my name is Nimesh Radia. I'm an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love to guide people. I feel like the planet's going through such a shift, and it's been planned for centuries, but I get to guide people. We have a choice of, do we let the outside noise consume us, or do we focus on the inside and do the work? And there's a lot happening on the planet right now. So I send love to wherever it's needed, but I also encourage us to do the internal work, because we are all going through a shift, and I get to guide people and hold their space while they go through the shift. Through spiritual mentoring, through Akashic Records, I feel like I'm here to do my soul purpose. So thank you for everyone that supports that. As part of this podcast, I get to interview some amazing, amazing guests, and I'm excited to have Yasmina here with me today. And Yas, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Over to you.
Well, hello, Nims. Thank you so much for having me on and creating such a beautiful, beautiful space and a beautiful vessel and vehicle for people to learn all different facets of spirituality. And I'm honored to be on here. So thank you for allowing me to be on your platform to shine my light and my love and my wisdom and the things that I've learned, which I still have much more to learn. But
We
yes,
all do.
in summary, I'm Yasmina. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative. I'm a speaker. And I'm really passionate about the idea of everyone living their most magical life. I have this vision where everyone wakes up, 8 billion people wake up in the morning and they think, wow, I get to live my most magical life. I am living my dream. I'm going for meaning. I feel connected to my soul. I feel so much love in my life for myself and others around me. I see magic and miracles everywhere that I go. And I'm so grateful that I get to live that reality most days. And I want that for everyone else. So yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to see what comes out of this conversation.
Beautiful. I love that. What a mission to allow 8 million people to really feel the beauty that's inside them. Wow. Wow. So tell me, what are you feeling in the current energy? What's going on the planet? What are you hearing? What's your take? Anything you want to share about current energy? And I talked a little bit about the planet going through a shift. What are you feeling?
There's a lot of energy right now. There's a lot of people who are being given the nudge and the call to follow something greater, follow something within their soul. And because of that, they may see circumstances in their life start to fall apart. Relationship, job, health, whatever it is, people might find themselves like kind of in this little whirlwind or wind tunnel, like I'm being pushed around, I don't know what's going on, what is happening. At the same time, like dealing with the layers of fear and chaos and this and that, whilst they're being pushed towards, well, who am I? What is it that I want to create? What is it here that I'm meant to do on this planet? And so with that, people are experiencing a bunch of layers be stripped away, ego deaths, all kinds of things. And at the same time, in the collective, I think, we've been living in a society that has been very rigid, very controlled, very structured. I feel like a lot of us have been disconnected from our spirituality intentionally by larger forces. And people are only now starting to, much more on a mass scale, reconnect to that and reawaken. And I think we're in an era where we're seeing the extent to which the wool has been pulled over our eyes as a human species and how much we have been lied to and deceived. We're seeing a lot of the oldest systems that have been in place for hundreds of thousands of years that aren't truly serving our highest love, service, good, and growth start to crumble and fall apart. And at the same time, we're starting to see the grassroots of newer, healthier systems for this new earth that we want to create start to come through and really start to gain that initial seedling traction and momentum. And this is why we're in such an era of chaos in 2025, where everyone is like, what is the frick is going on? Because we're in
Sure.
the middle of this big shift right now. And so I think, we need to stay connected to ourselves in this process. We need to find community. We need to find love and joy within ourselves, and stay in our power and stay in our center as this whole whirlwind is occurring around us.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I mean, for me, I talk a lot about shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine, and it's just the structures that we've created for many centuries. Not right or wrong, it just is, right? It's the world that we've lived in. But it's as we shift from divine masculine to divine feminine, there a lot of things do need to break. And my wish, I guess, is for it to happen with ease and grace. But when some things are so solid, sometimes it does take some pain. And this is why I send love to wherever it's needed. But at the same time, I want us to recognize that this shift has been planned, right? Mother Nature, Gaia, Source, whatever you want to, I feel like has had this plan to shift this planet from masculine to feminine for us to feel and fall in love with ourselves. But it is going to require breaking down the barriers that we built around us too, right? And the other thing that we're dealing with is we've chosen to heal so much personal and ancestral karma. We bring so much into this world, and yeah, I just like to remind people that you chose to be here as a soul, and you needed, you wanted, right? And that's and whatever you're going through, if you could just let go of your expectations and ride the wave, then things could get easier, right? But I'm curious, what do you do to kind of be that light to, because we all have a human experience, right? There's always ups and downs. But what do you do to feel that love that's inside you, to feel the shift that's happening around and inside you? What are your daily practices? How do you shine your light?
Well, I find ways to put myself first. And I think, especially as women, and as we're talking about the shift from divine masculine, divine feminine, a lot of the feminine has been kind of repressed or controlled or, pushed down. And so a lot of women have been disconnected from that feminine intuition. And a lot of women have this generational and ancestral trauma of, I need to people please, I need to put other people first. Right? Oh, forget about me. How can I help you? And and a lot of it's also a survival strategy. Let's be honest. But really, I feel like the more and more and more I go deeper into healing, the more I love myself and the more I naturally put myself first. And so I love the mornings. I just love to do breath work. I love yoga. I love hot yoga. I pray a lot. I've been, I often find that you don't, at least in my experience, you don't choose your spiritual path. Your spiritual path chooses you. It kind of just lands in your lap and you're like, whoop de doo, well, what is that? And wow, I didn't used to believe in prayer, and now suddenly I'm praying to guides who love me unconditionally, and to gods and goddesses. And I don't fully understand it, but I know that whenever I am in prayer, it feels like one of the most powerful forces, and it feels so loving and it feels so supportive. I also love to be in nature. I love to walk in the parks. I love to dance and, again, like, connect to that feminine, allow myself to feel my body, allow myself to, wiggle my hips and like connect with that play inside of me as well. And so whenever I'm always finding ways to tune into myself, and also listen to my inner voice and listen to my intuition. And there have been many stories across history. There's a really interesting book I read several years ago called The Gift of Fear. I think by Dr. Gavin De Becker. Basically, the whole book is about intuition, and it talks about all the times where people had a really strong intuition. I shouldn't open this packet. I shouldn't go with that surgeon. I shouldn't let this man carry my bags. And then they ignored it and they did. And the man attacked the woman. The surgeon killed the patient. The packet exploded, right? And so our intuition is one of the oft most ignored things by ourselves. Our mind will have a plan, but our inner voice in our heart knows things that the mind cannot possibly comprehend.
So true, so true. And, I know a lot of people, because I talk a lot about receiving messages and guides, and I know a lot of people will sometimes, the question I get is, well, I don't feel like guides. I don't feel like I receive messages. And I'll always encourage people to start with trusting your intuition, because that's how our guides communicate, certainly at the beginning. So trusting your intuition. And how do you trust your intuition? For me, my intuition isn't as loud as my ego. It comes in quieter. It comes with lighter. It doesn't, not as brash as the ego. It's that closing your eyes and asking a question, and what's the first answer you get, and trusting that. That for me is trusting your intuition and connecting with your guide. So I love that. I love that. And also, just to mention, the divine masculine, divine feminine. We all have masculine and feminine in us. So you're kind of representing the males too. I feel like we're going through a shift of connecting with the softer side, right? And it's really interesting. I feel like we're going to go through a period where, we've gone through a phase of putting people on a pedestal and all these big, these big stars, whatever. I feel like we're shifting into an age where community is even more important, where connection, your inner circle, your outer circle. So yeah, I'm feeling the shift to community. Is that something you're feeling? Is that something you're seeing?
Yeah,
How does that translate
absolutely.
into your world?
I think there's more of a remembrance of every single person having their own value. No one is no one is inherently better or worse than anyone else. As human beings, we all have the same innate value. And therefore, it doesn't matter what you've accomplished or what your status is or how many millions you've made or if you have a royal title or if you're a celebrity. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings on this planet trying to figure our shit out.
So true.
Uh,
We're soul having human experience, right?
exactly. And so I think that this sense of a pedestal and status creates separation. And we're in a place where we're desiring to come into deeper unity. And so the moment you put someone on a pedestal, you're creating separation you're creating an us and them, you're creating a separation. But if you recognize their humanity and you recognize their vulnerability, their human nature, and you connect on that, you create connection, you create unity. So I think there is much of a desire for deeper connection, especially because we're living in a very interesting age that is very globalized and very technologicized. And it's so beautiful that you and I get to be in different places right now having this conversation. And so, in that way, technology can be a tool for connection. But at the same time, it's been a very prominent tool for disconnection, where people think, oh, I think I'm connecting, but actually, I'm down a TikTok rabbit hole. Actually, I am sending messages that don't really mean anything. Actually, I'm not really here in this present moment. And since phones have taken over and, this instant messaging and computers, we're also experiencing a much faster pace of life. Things need to be faster, faster, faster. Now with AI, things are going to be even faster and faster and faster. And there's a risk in that, and there's an opportunity in that. And the opportunity in that is that if the AI does more things, then you can spend more time being a human being and walking in nature. And the risk in that is to fall more into this digitized cyborg rabbit hole. So yeah, I think there is a much deeper desire for connection and community. And I think an important thing to remember is that to feel real deep connection with others, you must also have a deep connection with yourself. So I think there's a lot more introspection coming. I think there was an interesting time with the COVID pandemic where people were forced to connect with themselves and to try new things out of boredom. um, but yes, I think there's a lot more deeper cultivation of connection with the self, connection with others, and then also connection with a deeper purpose, not just, oh, I'm just gonna clock in and clock out and do a job, but actually, what is it that I want to create? What is it that my soul is longing for? What is the kind of impact I want to make? What is the kind of life I really want to live? How do I want it not just to look, but how do I want it to feel? And so I think there's a lot more of that coming up for people.
I love it. I love it. And it's that all those questions you just asked are really powerful, because for me, the first stage of healing is always awareness. And how do you become more aware? You change your question. So I would encourage people to sit with those questions and what does it mean to you? You know, it is an interesting shift. And the thing I found, which is really interesting for me, is everybody's going through something. And so many people kind of, just a lot of questions I get recently, so many people are going through something when they're feeling like they're alone. You know, they're the only ones going through it. And, you know, it's sometimes when you're going through a shift, there is that period of isolation. Our circle needs to get smaller. But when I feel the community, it is switching into, we're all going through something, right? And it's that collective, knowing that you're going through a collective shift and you've chosen to be here is really powerful. And the other thing I'm finding is, and I love it, it's just, you know, the old paradigm would have been that, you know, when we come into this planet, we have this veil of amnesia, and it takes us a while to kind of allow that veil to become thinner so we truly understand our soul purpose. But I'm finding people are going through so much at a younger age. And, you know, I feel your energy and I'm like, wow, you know, you're the way you're at such a young age in terms of being present. And I'm like, that's so cool, because we need the full spectrum, right? And it's the realization that just because we're going through something, we shouldn't wait to go through something to be that light, to be that bridge, because we're always going to be going through something. And, you know, but we still need to be that shining light. So I'd love to know, what advice would you be for people who are going through a shift, and how do they truly connect to themselves and shine their light? How do you do it? What would your advice be?
Oh, when you're going through a shift, I think you have two options. One is resist it, two is surrender. Option one isn't very fun. Option
I
one,
feel like you've been there somewhere, maybe.
yeah, maybe. Option one can lead to a lot of chaos, but when you surrender and just allow whatever is occurring to occur and alchemize, that's when things move through you faster. So maybe there are times where you felt, I feel so much fear. I feel like if I let all of this out, I'm going to crumble into dust. And so I must control it so I don't crumble into dust. But actually, the interesting thing that you'll find is if you allow it to just fully take over your entire body, allow it to be there, welcome it, say hello, welcome, I see you here, and just allow it to do its thing. It's on the other side of those where I've experienced the most joy, love, light, unity, because you've allowed that emotion to be fully expressed and you've allowed it to fully come through. And I remember when I started to awaken, there were points in time where my whole life felt like the Truman Show. like I just remember I had the oddest synchronicities happen across time and space. Where I mean, it happened really fast. Like one day, I remember I had a thought, and I don't really remember having this thought before, but I was like, can deaf people drive? Like, I don't know, is that allowed? I don't know. I wonder. And then the next day, I had an Uber driver pick me up, and he was deaf.
Wow.
And I was having things happen like this all the time. And I was just like, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? And I just found I had to just follow the thread, keep following the thread, keep following the breadcrumbs. I had people come into my life. I remember when I got a really strong intuition that I need to go to Playa del Carmen because a friend someone actually had just met for the first time on Zoom was talking about it. And I had this feeling, I was like, I need to go there. But I had never been there before. I didn't know anything about it at all. And I remember the first thing I did was hit up a good friend of mine, who's lived in Mexico for a while. And I'm like, hey man, I'm thinking of checking out Playa. What do you think? And I get this 4-minute voice message in response. And he goes, Playa, I don't know, it's all right. I think there's a lot of other better places you can go in Mexico. Like, check out Cabo, check out Puerto Escondido. And I'm just like, it was literally like an energetic wah wah. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I start Googling Puerto Escondido, I start Googling Cabo, and I feel no energy. I feel no connection. I'm sure they're beautiful places, but I'm like, I feel like I need to Playa. And then that same week I was hanging out with a friend and she's like, yeah, I went to Playa. It was kind of whatever. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm having people in my life telling me it's kind of whatever. But my intuition is like, you have to go, you have to go. So I made a decision. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll find out. So I went. And I remember just landing there being like, what am I doing here? It's ugly, it's hot, I hate the beach. And I actually fell in love with the beach while I was there. I felt
Oh, beautiful.
so welcomed by the land. And I just remember I'd go out every day onto the beach and do energy healing around 5 p.m. in the shade. And I remember like within a few days of landing there, I'd felt more home than I'd ever felt anywhere in my life. And I wasn't even trying to make friends, but people just find you there, and it was through that I met a really good friend, who's been one of the most profound catalysts of awakening in my spiritual journey. Um, in my whole spiritual journey has helped me awaken so much. So always follow those nudges, always follow that intuition. And if you start to see and perceive things that you think might be crazy, you're probably not crazy. I remember the time I saw grass breathe for the first time. I landed back in the UK and I was sitting on my swing chair in my garden, and I wasn't, wasn't intoxicated in any way, fully sober. Wasn't wearing my glasses either. And then I look at the grass. It's breathing? And then I'm like, hang on. Because I open them again, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's breathing. And then I put my glasses on. I must be seeing things. I put my glasses on. No, it's still breathing.
Beautiful.
And just
Beautiful.
allowing yourself to be in that connection, follow the thread.
I love that. I mean, that's just such a beautiful example where your answers come from within, right? It's that, when we get a question, why is the first thing we always do, we go and Google it or ask a friend or whatever? Why can't we ask inside? So you got a message to go to Playa, right? And the outside world was challenging you, right? I feel like our guides have jokes. It's like they give us a message and then they send, they're like, how much do you really want it? Okay. And that's a reflection of our own doubts, right? It's that if we get a message like that and all of a sudden, well, are we crazy? And then your guides hear that. It's okay. They're doubting it. Okay, so they think they're crazy. Okay, let's send them people to confirm they're crazy and they should go somewhere else. So, and then it's like, how much do you trust you and how much do you trust? Because everything's part of you, right? The friends that were showing up were a reflection of what you're feeling inside. And it's just like, it's an interesting yin and yang, and trusting that intuition and follow it. And if you allow magic to happen, because how often do we stop ourselves, right? We get the nudge but if you go with the flow, that for me is perfect. You went with the flow and it changed your world.
Absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
land is so healing, right? It's the land needs you and you need the land. It's just, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share more about your story. You talk about your awakening and kind of And by the way, as a side note, if you're not following Yasmin on social media, please do, because she's always, whenever I see her stories, it's always bright, fun, and kind of always brings a smile to my face. So if you're not following her, please do. But yeah, I'd love for you to share more of your story. What's your spiritual journey? Where are you now? Anything that's in your heart.
Let me preface it with this. And I remember a couple of months ago sitting in an armchair in an apartment I was staying in with a friend in Playa. And I remember that whole day I felt complete bliss and joy and wholeness within myself and full true self-love. And there was no like, I should be doing this, I have to do this, I need to be productive, it's a Thursday, but like full just absolute self-love and bliss and wholeness. And I was reflecting around all of the things that I've materially achieved in my life, which is, some people would consider a lot. I've, learned like 8 languages. I've been to Cambridge University. I did an impact tour with Richard Branson for young entrepreneurs on Necker Island. I've achieved, classical piano at the Royal College of Music. A lot of things, right? And I'm just thinking about all of the things that I have done and achieved materially so far. And I was feeling that none of those achievements come even close to that quote unquote achievement of self-love. And I was reflecting on 2-year-old me, who's this little bright sprite, not knowing what was about to come in front of her. And then I was thinking about, 12-year-old me, who was so lost and so down and so confused. And I was just thinking of giving both of them a hug, being like, hey, look where we are. We did it. We did it. We did it. And so this, to me, is the greatest accomplishment, because when you can be living from this state, life is just so beautiful and you can create so much more magic for yourself and others. And so, yeah, in terms of my story, I grew up in London and was a very creative child. I loved performing, acting, singing, dancing, writing, everything. Very much a free spirit. And then as I kind of got older and societal narratives got their hook in me, I started to become very, very shy and very, very withdrawn. And I had extremely low self-esteem. And I had this feeling of just being completely, alone. Like no one understood me. And I didn't even really understand myself. And I would remember being in school and being like, I'd have people turn their backs to me in conversations, talk over my sentences. I felt like my voice didn't matter at all. Like, why would I bother even saying anything? I'm just going to go hide in the library because obviously no one wants to talk to me. And books are easier. So, I escaped a lot in books and TV and things like that. And I remember looking at the popular kids and thinking, why do people want to talk to them, but no one wants to talk to me? And I would wonder what was wrong with me. And I tried all kinds of things to be liked. I tried learning the Rubik's Cube because I thought that would impress people and then they'd want to be my friend. And that didn't work. So I became a magician. As you do. And I was kind of a bit weedy and I had these wireframe glasses and I looked kind of lanky and it was like my little ugly duckling phase, but I think she's beautiful inside. And yeah, I think the biggest thing that started my seedling awakening process was really the discovery of entrepreneurship. So when I was 16, I went into Google, I typed in how to get charisma because I wanted social skills. As you do. And through that, I started listening to podcasts and reading articles and really, improving in that skill in my life. And through that, I'm hearing about entrepreneurs and who are doing personal development and they're doing entrepreneurship and they're living a better life. And I'm like, wait, I don't have to live this life that's been kind of mapped out, but I can do something different, or I don't have to be this loser version of myself. I can be the hero me. How incredible. So that was really the beginnings. And, at the same time, I was still the good student. I felt like I had to, please my parents and my teachers and all those kinds of things. So, got all my good grades. I went to Cambridge. I studied languages and was an absolute language nerd. And then, after I came back from my year abroad, I ended up doing this prestigious internship in finance. And
Wow. Okay.
right. And everyone's telling me, congratulations, Yasmina, you've made it. And I am living this existence where I feel like my life is not mine. And I feel like everyone around me is saying, thank God it's Friday. It felt like no one was really soaking the juice of life. No
Mm.
one's really living. Everyone's kind of existing for this. They're trading their life force to be in a place that they don't want to be so they can have money to spend it in the 10% of free time they have left with their life.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't really feel like a good model for living.
Very
And
true.
so
Mm.
I even remember being in the ladies' bathroom, bumping into a higher level, VP that I respected. And I remember we were talking, and she was like, "Oh, what are you going to do this weekend?" She's like, "Oh, I'm going to this cool thing or that cool thing or whatever." And then I went, "Oh yeah, oh shame we got to come back on Monday." And I'll never forget, she looks me dead in the eye and she just goes, "Welcome to adult life."
Wow.
And I was just like, "No, thank you, ma'am."
Yeah, I'm not signing up for that.
Maybe this is yours, but this is not mine. And so, I feel like the universe puts you in situations to kind of test you and put you to your limit and be like, are you going to continue to accept this reality? Or are you going to go into something else? So I feel like that was another time where I was being shown, hey, you can do this and you'll probably throw yourself off a building in 5 years. Or you can do something else. So
Yeah.
that was really where I started to, create my own reality. And so I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. So the best way for me at the time was to start a podcast. And sharing my voice, who knew?
Yeah. I love
And
it.
I started interviewing all these, incredible entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. I made amazing friends. I soon started interviewing people like the founder of Reebok and extremely successful entrepreneurs. And it's actually funny when I listen to, you can find it if you want, if you're curious. It's called The Young Entrepreneur's Journey. I've not done it in several years. But when I listen to my voice back then, there's a lot of unhealed masculine. I was very much like, it's still a very powerful voice, but it's very kind of heavy and very kind of go, let's do da 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 da. I can't even it's stressful for me to emulate it right
Yeah. It's
now.
a different world, right? It's a different you.
But it's interesting to just see that growth. And then anyway, long story short, I go on this crazy adventure with a friend, my best friend at the time, first business partner. We start traveling the world to rebuild this young entrepreneur community of the next generation of impact entrepreneurs. And through being with him as friends and business partners, traveling so closely, I learned so much about what it means to be in partnership, what it means to be in relationship. And we didn't have a romantic relationship at all, but what it really means to be a catalyst for someone else, to what it means to be extremely triggered, right, and have all your wounds come up, then have to heal that together. It was a very profound and life-shaping and life-shaking experience. And I experienced, I was experiencing the craziest. I was almost living a double life for a period of time. Like, I was invited to the first World War to take place in France since the French Revolution, where I was introduced to the British ambassador for France and sat next to a handsome prince. I was so sad I was a lesbian, completely ruined my Disney moment. And the next week I almost went homeless in Barcelona, and I was living off 2 falafel wraps a day because that's all I could afford. I was like,
Wow. Extreme.
living this crazy life, it really showed me what I was made of in terms of resiliency, in terms of resourcefulness, and in terms of turning straw into gold, like Rumpelstiltskin. and
I love it.
turned everything around, did this impact tour with Richard Branson. And then I remember I got to this period of my life, I'd had so much chaos that I went, okay, I just need stability. I just need grounding. And so this is like the precursor to the real awakening, which is where, I ended up working with a friend, entrepreneur, really successful, that I really respected, really believed in this company, loved it, was so passionate about it. I stopped having sort of casual relationships and I got a girlfriend, and I was it was really nice, like steady. This is so nice. Life is so great. It's so nurturing. This is great. I love life. Oh, whoopee. um, as soon as my soul was kind of ready for expansion, my relationship started to fall apart. And then I experienced a crazy heart opener weekend, it was extremely surreal. It was the weekend where King Charles and Camilla were getting crowned King and Queen of England, and it's this whole like public furore. And in the meantime, my family is trying to tell me that my cat is sick, and I'm just not paying attention because my relationship's falling apart, and we've not broken up, but I feel like my heart is just going crazy. It was like the first time I fell in love. You know how it is. So, um, and I remember there's this Friday evening where I, had to stay at home, and my cat had kidney cancer. And so we had to put her to sleep. And so she died, and I experienced my first heartbreak from death. I had more distant family members pass away, but my cat, we had such a close
Sure. Different
connection.
part. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Soul
Yeah.
companion.
You feel it. Yeah, she was an absolute soul companion, like love of my life. And then the day after that, my relationship ended. And so I had my first heartbreak from love. And so
Wow.
I remember having this moment. Um, I remember having this moment of, you know, my heart felt so shattered, but I was in such a state of acceptance. I just told myself, I'm going to feel this way as long as I feel, and that's okay. And if I feel this way for a long time, then I feel this way for a long time. I'll learn to live with it. And this miraculous thing happens, Nims.
As it does.
Miraculous thing happens. And I was in such a full state of surrendered acceptance that literally a few, like 2 to 3 hours after saying goodbye to my ex, my heart just healed. And all of the heartbreak was gone.
Wow.
And I felt really at peace. I felt great. I'll be honest, I felt great. And I must have sounded so crazy to my friends, like an absolute psychopath. Like, yeah, so my cat died yesterday and my girlfriend broke up with me this
But I
morning.
feel
Anyway,
great.
I feel fantastic. And, obviously grief comes in waves, so it came back and went away and all that kind of stuff. But that was a really huge, I think the grief and love are so closely related. And so it was such a huge expansion for me into love. And at the same time in that life, I tried to go back to old habits. And I tried to start dating again. And at the same time, I was doing this work with my this company, and things there were no longer feeling quite right. And I didn't know what it was, because it's all great, of course, but I'm like, it's not quite right. And then I'll put it this way, in January this is all 2023. In January 2024, I was watching a training with a spiritual teacher, and it was talking about how to go from your head to your heart. And he said that there are 3 things that really lead to awakening. The first one is heartbreak or separation of some kind, so check. Second one is death, so check for me in 2023. And the third one is financial loss. So this comes to later in 2023. Things aren't feeling quite right with this company. I'm not sure what's going on. they're like, oh, we're in a financial bind. We'll pay you, we're trying to pay you, but we're struggling. And I'm like, I'm compassionate. I understand. No worries. I'm good. Pay me next month. This was such a great lesson around me for being in boundaries and people pleasing in my power. But I so readily gave my power away to others because I wanted to be liked and I wanted to keep peace.
Yeah.
And so what happened was a series of late invoice payments where I felt really unstable, right? And not secure and wasn't receiving communication around it. And so one day I end up at a lunch in end of October in Mayfair with a really good friend of mine who's done loads of spiritual work, and he's my age as well. He's like, jokingly call him the light skin at Cartol. He just walks in the park and is fully in peace and bliss, and he's wonderful. And he asked me, how are you doing, Yasmina? And I'm like, I'm okay. And he's like,
I'm okay. Such a brave
yeah, and
answer,
he's like,
right?
well, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I feel like everything is fine. Everything is fine. It's just things feel like not quite aligned. Like in dating and my work, it's like all fine, but it's like, And he's like, yeah, do you want to do an energy healing around that? And he uses this system called the Body Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. Look into it. I learned it after experiencing this, and it's been life-changing for me. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so he does this energy healing, and then he starts asking me questions about what was your parents' relationship like with money, and this and that. And I'm like, it basically ends up with me bawling in this restaurant. All this money trauma's come up.
Wow.
And I'm like, but I feel like this lift in my energy. And I'm like, I have been allowing myself to be taken advantage of. And it's not even that they were bad and they were intentionally
Yeah.
trying to. They're good people. But I was allowing myself to be treated a certain way. And I was like, I cannot allow this to happen. I cannot be in this situation. And I felt so upset because I felt like I'd betrayed myself. And I felt like I'd looked over all of these kind of internal inner voice nudges and potential red flags and things like that because I wasn't able to be in my power. And so it was actually a very heartbreaking situation for me to realize how much, you know, equity that was talked about and that we were totally going to do has suddenly vanished. And like all this money, I've still not been paid. Um, you know, like 2 years later or 1.5 years later, and it's like, it's fine, and it took me a long time to get over that. But at the same time, what a beautiful investment for a spiritual awakening. Like all of the experiences that I've had since that, if that's the investment, totally worth it. And so it
Good
was
too.
around that period of my life that I really started to reflect, well, if I could start from scratch and my inner child, like what did I want to do as a kid, right? What would I do? And a lot of self-reflection, and I just started taking actions towards things that excited me. And that's how I ended up kind of traveling and then, in Playa and Mexico with friends. And, I was traveling a lot in that period of time and having all these crazy synchronicities happen. And then it was after that experience with a really powerful energy healing from the friend I'd met in Playa. I came back to London, was like, started having ego deaths, being like, what is reality? I discovered about past lives. I had my first past life regression. And first thought I was just crazy and what was I talking about under hypnosis? Like, I thought my brain was just making it up, but it's a reason why it's picking that stuff to make up as opposed to anything else to make up, quote unquote, right? And I remember when I was recounting my experience in that regression to really trusted close friends, there were moments of remembrance that were like it wasn't like I was just telling a story. It was like I was going in to try and remember and tell the story. And there were moments where I've never felt so in presence, like in the void before. Like I literally went into the void to retrieve it and I would just go silent for like a minute. They'd be like, Yasmina, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, just remembering, okay. And then like my arm would start shaking and my leg would start shaking and like I'd start like shaking back and forth. I'm like, what is going on? And then I started having experiences like just sitting on a bench and then my head just tilting back and energy rushing out of my brow.
Wow.
And I just remember sitting on this, I was like stuck on this bench for like half an hour, being like, I can't move, what is going on? Right? And just having all of these experiences. And so sometimes when that happens, you can think you're crazy. And
Yeah.
maybe it goes against things that you've been taught or certain environments or religions that you grew up in, or you're atheist, or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But when
It's
you
labels. Mm.
see, feel, perceive something to be true, it's incredible. And I'll wrap up with this for now because we're talking for a while. But I've through this kind of spiritual healing, um, I've I've healed a lot of asthma. Like I've healed a lot of physical ailments I've had. Healed asthma. I've been wearing glasses since I was 9. My vision has significantly improved. Not 20/20 yet, but I don't wear glasses
Wow.
anymore. I don't need them from like most things, right? And so I've just healed so much of my physical body, and it's interesting that we live in a. I have some lovely friends that I met last year, and they're creating this incredible documentary on the ancient wisdom of plants. And they showed me the trailer, and it was so interesting to watch. They had this one line that kind of really hit me, but they were showing all of the like pharmaceutical shelves. And we're told and we're taught that this is the natural, normal, best way. But this has only been around for a couple of 100 years. But what's been around for thousands and thousands of years? Holistic medicine plants. And we're told, oh no, that's some crazy hippie stuff. But actually, it's been around for thousands of
Yeah,
years,
true.
used
Very true.
successfully across all cultures in the world. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, let's say that.
Wow. I feel like we could
Mhm.
do a whole series on your on your life and your awakening and what you've been through, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's so much more there. So talk to us about the what you do today in terms of connecting with your guides, the spiritual. Do you feel them around you? How does that feel? What's your connection with spirit, with source, whatever you want to call it, your guides?
I think we all, we all experience it differently. I have a friend who receives messages, she's clairaudient, she receives messages in her head and she'll talk
Yeah,
back and forth. I've, you know, I know people who have just deep knowings about things, etc., or clairvoyance. They go, oh, this could happen, this could happen. For me, I'm very clairsentient. I'm very energetically attuned. I'm very sensitive to the energies around me. So I can sometimes feel their energy around me, and when I tune in, I kind of talk to them, and then I don't hear anything, but I kind of feel like I got something back, and I go, "Oh, that's funny," you know. Or like, um, here's a thing that I learned um, when I call on my guides. I only call on those who love me unconditionally, and that's important because there are darker beings that will shapeshift and pretend to be light. And so you might think that you're being guided by some force that is very loving, but actually they have their own plans that are not for your highest good. And so I always make sure that I am calling on beings that love me unconditionally. And I I do practices to send away any beings that do not love me unconditionally. Um, and yeah, and then I just pray and I ask for things. And sometimes I'll do it in the morning. Sometimes I'll do it on a walk in the park. I think it's always beautiful to be in nature because you're often more connected to your energetic
sure.
essence and attuned. Um, and yeah, I'll just pray. I'll talk. I'll ask. I'll ponder. Um, all kinds of things. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it's you talk about the darker forces. I've always the premise I've always done is whoever's energy is highest wins. So if you can keep your energy high, nobody can do anything. And I do a similar practice where I just ask my guides, I'm like, put a bubble around me and only allow loving and supporting vibrations in. And I give them permission. So, because, a lot of people kind of fear dark forces and, because you even mentioned AI earlier, it's just, there is a lot of intense energy around that at the moment. And it just, if you can trust in your energy, your vibration, your light, and talk to your guides and just say, you know what, only allow supporting and loving vibrations in and trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, then trust that. So thank you for that. That's so powerful and so insightful in terms of your journey. You've clearly been through a lot. And what advice would you give somebody who is feeling? I mean, there's so much to your story about death and heartbreak, and it's for me, our awakening is a lifetime journey. It's not a one-time thing, but we get those blips where something accelerated happens, right? And because even our pets, in many ways, they are a soul companion. They take on the dark energies that are around us. They take on so much, and when they leave this realm, it's kind of an end of cycle too, right? It's just an interesting when you start to look at things differently. But if somebody's listening and they're going and they're deep into their deepest, darkest times and maybe going through an awakening, what advice would you give them?
See everything as a gift. I think when you're in the pit, it can be so easy to be like, woe is me. Why me? Everything is terrible. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe everything is terrible. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
You can just go, everything is terrible. Fine. But to avoid that victim consciousness, and you were just talking about, people have this fear of the dark and that kind of stuff. That's where they get you. They get you in the fear. But out on the opposite of fear is love, right?
Yeah.
So being in that love. So remembering your power, and you are a powerful creator and nothing has power over you. And so asking yourself in those moments, what is the gift here? What am I receiving? What am I learning? What can I now create? What can I now do? How is this shaping my growth? And what can I take from this now moving forward? How can I use this experience to surrender more deeply? And things will come up. I remember I had my wisdom teeth out a few weeks ago, and I had some crazy divine synchronicities around that. It was kind of insane. It's a whole other story. But I remember I was conscious, I was awake while these doctors were literally like taking massive drills into my gums, and I had this.
Sounds crazy.
It was. And I had all this fear come up, right? And I remember at one time I talked myself.
A drill in your mouth would do that.
Right. So I remember it was one moment where I was like, oh my God, they've got the wrong tooth. They've got the wrong tooth. They've got the wrong tooth. They're doing the wrong tooth. And they didn't, they're professionals. They did it all perfectly. But I was there just like, they got the wrong tooth. And then I just lay there and I was just like allowing, okay, I'm experiencing some fear right now. This is an opportunity for deeper surrender. There's nothing I can do right now. Okay, if they've got the wrong tooth, they got the wrong tooth. I'll survive. It'll be fine. Then I'll just have one less tooth. I was just like, I can live with one less tooth. I was just like allowing myself.
You were going through the process at the time. It's beautiful.
At the time, it's like, oh, that was just allowing myself to surrender and, be soft with yourself, be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself. Whatever situation you're going through, how would you, if you're going to talk to yourself about it, talk to yourself as if you were your best friend. What would your best friend say about this? And an exercise I used to do several years ago, I've not done it recently, but it was really fun while I did it, was I'd get out a voice recorder and I would talk about my day as my best friend, like as if I was talking to my
Nice.
best friend about it, and then my
Mm.
best friend was giving me advice about it. Because I think we can often be really harsh on ourselves and critical and
For
be like,
sure.
I shouldn't
Mm.
be feeling this way. I have things to do. I have a plan. I have a life. This like emotional chaos was not in my plan. Okay, it didn't fit in my Google Calendar.
Exactly.
um, and just allowing yourself to come from that place of self-love and giving yourself a hug and being like, hey, it's okay. I'm allowed to have an off day. I'm
Exactly.
allowed to have a day where I don't get all my to-do list done. I'm allowed to put me first before
I
the
love it.
expectations of society, work, income, anything else. And so just being really gentle with yourself.
I love it. I love it. And for those listening, not watching on YouTube, that was a beautiful example of channeling, because I asked you a question in terms of if somebody's going through something deep, dark, what would your advice be? And you closed your eyes and you were just present for that moment, and it was so beautiful to watch. And you channeled the answer, and that in that moment is what we should do more of. Is just stop, breathe, feel what we're feeling inside, and then, because how often do we feel the pressure to answer something or feel the pressure to go on ChatGPT or Google? It's just when you just breathe and allow yourself to be present in whatever you're going through. That was so powerful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So as we start closing out this episode, I'd love to know more about what are you doing now? What does the future look like for Yasmina? If somebody wants to interact, reach out, what's the best way of doing it?
Absolutely. Well, I'm on this mission to help people create their most magical lives and to really inspire people and be a voice. So, I'm just shining more of my light and following the threads and journey. I'll be launching a podcast soon, which I'm really
Yay!
excited for, and currently writing a book called Exponential Relationships. The current title is Exponential Relationships, the key to wild success, deep fulfillment, and a life that feels like magic. And that kind of covers my whole journey of from being a really shy kid to becoming an exceptional relationship builder and landing in all of these crazy situations.
I love it.
And all of the amazing things that you can learn from that. It's really a magnum opus of 10 years of my life's work. And one thing I see that as a key part to a magical life, as well as spirituality and many other things, because a lot of manifestations come from people. So the more that we can be grounded in the material world. And one thing, before I just share how you can contact me, I'm feeling called to share this.
Sure, please
I
do.
think a lot of people who can get on the spiritual path really want to just some will just like, I just want to be in the 5D all the time, and I'm going to be in this like dimensional bliss and and I'm like, that's fantastic and so wonderful for you, but if so, why are you here? What are you doing here? You might as well not have come, And so a reminder to be grounded, grounded in the world, grounded in the physical, grounded in your
Yeah,
relationships, grounded in the
powerful.
material, It's not spiritual to be broke, Master the
Yes,
material world.
yeah, yeah,
Master
very
money,
true,
master relationships, master
very true.
health, allow your vessel to be filled.
That's really
So that came
powerful.
out
That's
so
really
passionate.
important.
I was
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
cool
love
to
it.
share that.
I love it.
Anyway, bottom line, how to contact me. Check out my media kit, yasminaellinsmedia.com. Also have a website, yasminaellins.com. My Instagram, Yasmina Ellins. My LinkedIn, Yasmina Ellins.
There's a trend here. I don't know.
My
And
name,
we'll include
basically.
that in the show notes for sure.
Shockingly. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Nims.
No, that's so powerful. And actually, the last bit you shared is so important. Is that we're a soul having a human experience, and why do we sometimes want to bypass the human experience and I'm just going to be spiritual? I'm going to be whatever you go through. It is part of what you signed up for. So yeah, such a powerful way to close out this episode. And Yasmin, I'm excited to see what the future holds. I feel like you're such a powerful light. Like I said earlier, just follow Yasmin on all platforms. And I mean, I see you mostly on Insta and your stories, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds with your book and the podcast, and I'm sure you'll be back. When things kind of continue to evolve, and we could talk for hours, right? So I'm sending everybody so much love and light. Embrace your journey. And Yasmin is such a powerful example of being present in her journey and allowing magic to happen inside and around her. And I'm sure there's people listening saying, well, actually, that's not me. I don't experience the same level of magic. If you're listening to this episode, then be open to magic happening in maybe the most unusual way. Because sometimes magic comes along in the most unexpected way, but if it doesn't fit into our box, our expectation, we miss it. So if you take anything from this experience, this episode, be open to magic. Be open to your guides. Because I also feel like our guides have jokes. They have a sense of humor. So be open to them sending messages and sending magical things into your world in so many different ways. So, Yasmina, thank you for being here. You're such a beautiful light. Thank you for being a guest. I'm going to hand over to you to any final thoughts and close us out.
I think the one thing that's been present that I feel called to share as well is there's such a craving, I think, now for deeper authenticity. And I think we've gone through a big era of masks and image and status and how do I position this and corporate that and blah, 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 that. And as you often say, Nims, is like, do shine your light and share your story. And, a lot of people say that love is the highest frequency, but actually it's not. Authenticity is the highest frequency. And so the more that you can share authentically, the more that you can share parts of your story wherever you are, if it's social media, if it's with friends, if it's at work, it doesn't really matter. That's what creates deeper unity and deeper connection and a deeper understanding of we're all going through something. And yeah, it just felt cool to that. So allow yourself to be you. Don't feel the need to control, hide, or layer anything on top. And just share what you're at, and the right people will meet you there.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Thank you again. Sending love and light out to everybody. It's a beautiful way to finish is be seen, use your voice, share authentically. I love it. Sending love and light. Bye for now.
Thank you, Nims.